My husband got my best friend pregnant while I was planning his surprise. What I did next left them begging, but I just smiled and walked away. Now they're both desperate and alone. Subscribe to the channel and like the video to see more stories like this. My husband got my best friend pregnant while I was traveling and planning a surprise for him, but what I did afterward left everyone shocked. I stood frozen in the doorway of our bedroom, suitcase still in hand, staring at the scene that would shatter my entire world. My husband Derek and my best friend since college, Natalie, were tangled in our marital bed. The sheets I had carefully selected during our honeymoon trip to Italy. The pillows where I rested my head every night for the past 7 years. They didn't hear me come in. I had returned 2 days early from my business trip to Chicago, eager to surprise Derek for our 8th wedding anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had spent the entire flight planning how I would walk through that door, rose bouquet in hand, ready to tell him about the promotion I'd secured. The promotion that would finally allow us to start the family we'd been discussing for years. Instead, I got a different kind of surprise. Natalie's distinctive laugh pierced through my shock. That same laugh I'd heard countless times over wine nights, during our weekly brunches, through phone calls where she'd complain about her string of failed relationships. She always said she envied what Derek and I had. Apparently, she envied it enough to try it on for herself. My phone was already recording before I even realized I'd pulled it from my purse. Some survival instinct kicked in, telling me I'd need evidence, proof that this betrayal was real and not some nightmare I'd wake from. Derek's voice cut through the air, breathless and intimate in a way that made my stomach turn. We need to tell her soon. You can't hide the pregnancy much longer. Pregnancy. The word hit me like a physical blow. My hand gripped the doorframe to steady myself. Natalie was pregnant with my husband's child. While I had been working 16-hour days, traveling for work, building our future, they had been building a completely different future behind my back. I know, Natalie replied, her voice taking on that whiny quality she used when she wanted sympathy. But Emma's been so stressed with work, maybe we should wait until after her big presentation next month. I don't want to ruin her moment. How considerate. My best friend was worried about ruining my professional moment while actively destroying my marriage and my life. I had heard enough. But instead of bursting in with tears and screams like they probably expected, I did something that would prove far more effective. I quietly backed out of the house, pulling the door shut with the same gentle click it had made when I entered. They never knew I'd been there. In my car, I sat with the engine off, hands shaking as I watched the video I'd just captured. Clear audio, clear images, undeniable proof of their betrayal. And that mention of pregnancy, that was the detail that would change everything. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. Hey babe, how's Chicago? Missing you. Can't wait for you to get home tomorrow. Love you. Love you. 2 words that now meant absolutely nothing. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to the Riverside Hotel downtown, checked into a suite using my personal credit card that Derek didn't have access to, and began making calls. First to my lawyer, Rachel Morrison, who I'd worked with on corporate contracts. She picked up on the second ring. Emma, everything okay? It's pretty late. Rachel, I need a divorce attorney. The best one you know, and I need them tonight. There must have been something in my voice because she didn't ask questions. I'll text you a contact in 5 minutes. Her name is Patricia Chen. She's a shark, Emma. She doesn't lose. Perfect. That's exactly what I need. My second call was to my brother James, a private investigator who specialized in infidelity cases. He'd always joked that my marriage to Derek seemed too perfect, that nobody was that happy. Turns out his cynicism was justified. Jamie, I need your help. Professional help. What happened? His voice immediately shifted to business mode. Derek's having an affair with Natalie. She's pregnant. I have video evidence, but I need more. I need everything. Financial records, phone records, everywhere they've been, how long this has been going on, all of it. Jesus, Em, I'm so sorry. But yeah, I can do that. Send me what you have. I'll start digging tonight. My third call was the hardest. My mother had adored Derek, welcomed him into our family like the son she never had. This would break her heart almost as much as it was breaking mine. Emma, sweetie, isn't it late there? Are you all right? I couldn't stop the tears anymore. They came in silent streams as I explained everything. Mom didn't interrupt, didn't gasp or cry out. She just listened with that steady presence she'd always had. What do you need from me? She finally asked. Just don't tell anyone yet. Not Dad, not anyone. I need time to get everything in order before this explodes. Whatever you need, baby. We're here. Always. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together in our bed. Instead, I sat at the hotel desk with my laptop and started digging through our finances. What I found made the betrayal even worse. 3 months ago, Derek had withdrawn $15,000 from our joint savings account. The note said, car repairs. We didn't need car repairs. Our vehicles were both under warranty. 2 months ago, another $8,000. This time labeled emergency medical. Whose emergency? Certainly not mine. 6 weeks ago, $5,000 to a jewelry store I didn't recognize. I never received any jewelry for our anniversary, my birthday, or any occasion. I pulled up our credit card statements next. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to. A weekend getaway to Napa Valley that supposedly was a business trip for Derek's marketing firm. Hotel rooms, spa treatments, flowers delivered to an address I didn't recognize until I Google mapped it and realized it was Natalie's new apartment. The apartment she'd moved into 4 months ago, claiming she needed more space and a fresh start after her last breakup. Fresh start. Right. By 3 in the morning, I had a clear picture. This affair had been going on for at least 6 months, possibly longer. Derek had spent over $30,000 of our money on Natalie. Money I had helped earn through my own career success. Money that was supposed to be for our future children, our dream house, our life together. Patricia Chen called me at 7 sharp. Ms. Harrison, Rachel gave me your situation. situation. I've cleared my morning. Can you come to my office at 9? I'll be there. Patricia's office was in a glass tower downtown, all sharp angles and expensive furniture. She was exactly what Rachel had promised. Mid-40s, perfectly tailored suit, eyes that missed nothing. Tell me everything, she said, pulling out a legal pad. I did. I showed her the video, the financial records, the timeline James had already started building. She took notes in silence, her expression never changing except for a slight tightening around her mouth when I mentioned the pregnancy. This is good, she finally said. Very good. In this state, adultery matters in divorce proceedings, and the financial deception is crucial. He's been using marital funds for an extramarital affair. That's dissipation of assets. What does that mean? It means he has to pay you back. Every dollar he spent on her comes out of his portion of the settlement. Plus, given the circumstances, you're likely to receive a very favorable division of assets. His betrayal works in your favor legally. I want everything, I said quietly. The house, the savings, everything. I want him to feel what it's like to lose everything. Patricia smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd just spotted prey. Then that's what we'll get you. Now here's what we're going to do. She laid out a strategy that was both brilliant and brutal. First, we'd secure our evidence. James would continue his investigation, but we'd also get official documentation. Private investigators who could testify in court. Forensic accountants to track every dollar Derek had stolen from our marriage. Second, we'd wait. Not long, but long enough to catch them in more lies. Long enough for Derek to make his next move, whatever that would be. Don't let on that you know anything, Patricia advised. Go home tomorrow like you planned. Act normal. The element of surprise is crucial. We want him comfortable, complacent. People make mistakes when they think they're getting away with something. I don't know if I can do that. Be in the same room with him and pretend everything's fine. You can, because every day you pretend is another day we gather evidence. Another day he digs himself deeper. And when we're ready, when we have everything we need, we strike. And Emma, she leaned forward. We strike to destroy. I left Patricia's office feeling something I hadn't felt since finding them together. Powerful. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a woman with a plan. A woman with proof. A woman who was going to make sure that betrayal cost them everything. James called as I was walking back to my car. You're going to want to hear this. I pulled their phone records. They've been texting and calling for 8 months. 8 months, Emma. This wasn't some recent thing. 8 months. I counted backward in my mind. That would be right around the time Derek had convinced me to take on that big client that required frequent travel to Chicago. The client that had me away from home 3 or 4 days a week. He'd planned this. He'd encouraged my career success, not because he supported me, but because it gave him freedom to betray me. There's more, James continued. I tracked Derek's location history through his phone. Guess whose apartment he's been visiting 3 to 4 times a week. And get this, he was there last Tuesday night, the night he told you he was working late on the Henderson account. I had called him that night around 9. He'd sounded stressed, claimed he was buried in paperwork and would be home late. I'd told him to order takeout, not to worry about dinner. I'd been supportive, understanding, the perfect wife. While he was in bed with my best friend, send me everything, I told James. Every text, every call log, every location. I want dates, times, everything. You got it, Emma. For what it's worth, I always thought you were too good for him. Maybe I was, but I'd loved him anyway. Loved him enough to trust him completely. Loved him enough to believe in us even when I was exhausted from travel, stressed from work, wondering why he seemed distant lately. I'd blamed myself, thinking I wasn't doing enough to keep our marriage strong. Turns out, it wasn't my fault at all. It was his choice, his betrayal, his destruction of everything we'd built together. My phone buzzed with another text from Derek. Landing soon, babe. Can't wait to see you. Made reservations at Marcello's for tomorrow night for our anniversary. Just you and me, like old times. Marcello's, the Italian restaurant where he'd proposed 7 years ago. The romantic gesture would have melted my heart yesterday. Today, it just made me angrier. He was planning our anniversary dinner while carrying on an affair, while his mistress carried his child. I typed back, sounds perfect. Landing in 2 hours. See you soon. Love you. The lies came easily now. Maybe that's what betrayal does. It teaches you how to lie just as well as the people who hurt you. I had one more stop to make before heading home. I drove to Natalie's apartment building, parking across the street with a clear view of her door. James had given me her daily routine. She worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, rarely leaving before noon. Sure enough, at 11:15, her door opened. She stepped out wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater that, now that I was looking for it, definitely hit a small baby bump. She looked happy, glowing even, probably thrilled about her little secret. She had no idea that her world was about to collapse just like mine had. I took photos. Documentation of everything. Her apartment building, her car, the timestamp, evidence that I'd been here, tracking the affair. All of it would matter later. My flight back wasn't for another 3 hours, so I sat in that car and watched her building. Watched Derek's car pull up at noon. Watched him walk into her building with a bag from her favorite Thai restaurant. Watched him emerge 2 hours later, adjusting his tie, checking his phone. He looked so normal, so much like the man I'd married. On the outside, nothing had changed. He still wore the watch I'd given him for his 30th birthday. Still drove the car we'd picked out together. Still carried himself with that easy confidence that had attracted me in the first place. But he wasn't the same man. Or maybe he'd always been this man, and I'd just been too trusting to see it. When my actual flight landed that evening, I texted Derek from the airport. He responded immediately. On my way to pick you up. So glad you're home early. He thought I was coming home today as scheduled. He had no idea I'd been in town for the past 24 hours. Watching, planning, preparing. This was it. I was about to walk back into my marriage and pretend everything was fine. Pretend I didn't know my husband and my best friend had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Pretend I wasn't already planning their destruction. introduction. Could I do it? Could I look Derek in the eyes and smile and kiss him and act like nothing had changed? I had to, because Patricia was right. Every day I pretended was another day they'd get comfortable. Another day they'd make mistakes. Another day I could gather more evidence for the reckoning that was coming. I saw Derek waiting at passenger pickup, leaning against his car with that smile I'd fallen in love with 9 years ago. Before I got out of my Uber, I took a deep breath and made myself a promise. They would pay for every lie, every betrayal, every stolen moment of my trust and love. I would make sure of it. Then I painted on my best smile, grabbed my suitcase, and walked toward my husband like I was still the woman who loved him. But that woman was gone, and the woman who replaced her was going to make them both rue the day they decided to destroy my life. Derek wrapped me in a tight hug the moment I reached him, and I had to force myself not to recoil. His cologne, the one I'd bought him last Christmas, filled my nostrils as he kissed my cheek. The same cologne he'd been wearing when I caught him with Natalie just 24 hours ago. God, I missed you, he murmured into my hair. House felt empty without you. Empty except for your pregnant mistress, I thought, but kept my smile fixed in place. Missed you too. Thanks for picking me up. He loaded my suitcase into the trunk while I climbed into the passenger seat of our SUV. The same SUV where I'd found receipts for hotels I'd never stayed in, hidden in the glove compartment during my previous trip to Chicago. I'd been so naive then, telling myself there must be a reasonable explanation. There was an explanation, all right, just not a reasonable one. How was the trip? Derek asked as he pulled into traffic. Did the presentation go well? The presentation. Right, the one I'd actually given 3 days ago before returning early. The one that had secured my promotion to senior vice president. Normally, I would have called Derek immediately to share the good news. This time, I'd said nothing. It went really well, actually, I said, keeping my voice light. Johnson was impressed with the proposal. I think we'll land the account. That's my girl. I knew you'd crush it. He reached over and squeezed my hand. His wedding ring caught the light, the same ring I'd slipped onto his finger 8 years ago, promising to love and honor him forever. Promises, I was learning, meant very little to some people. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at the screen. Natalie. Hey babe, are you back yet? Want to grab brunch tomorrow? I have something exciting to tell you. Something exciting. The pregnancy she'd been hiding for months. The pregnancy she'd created with my husband while lying to my face about supporting our friendship. I texted back. Just landed. Tomorrow sounds perfect. Can't wait to catch up. Derek glanced at my phone. Natalie? Yeah, she wants to do brunch tomorrow. That's nice. You two haven't hung out in a while. His voice was perfectly casual, but I caught the slight tension in his jaw. He was nervous about us spending time together. Probably worried Natalie might slip up. Might reveal something she shouldn't. We've both been busy, I said, watching his reaction carefully. She mentioned something about exciting news? Oh, his knuckles whitened slightly on the steering wheel. What kind of news? She wouldn't say. Guess I'll find out tomorrow. The rest of the drive home was filled with mundane conversation about work, about the weather, about our anniversary dinner plans. Derek seemed relaxed, confident. He thought he'd gotten away with it. Thought I was still his trusting, oblivious wife. Let him think that, for now. When we pulled into our driveway, I noticed Derek glance at his phone quickly before pocketing it. A text notification he didn't want me to see. I'd bet anything it was from Natalie, probably asking if I suspected anything. Don't worry, Natalie, I thought bitterly. Your secret's safe, for now. Inside our house, everything looked exactly as it should. The photos of us on our wedding day still hung in the entryway. The couch where we'd spent countless evenings watching movies together. The kitchen where Derek used to surprise me with breakfast in bed on weekends. This house was supposed to be our sanctuary. Instead, it had become the scene of my worst nightmare. Want me to order dinner? Derek asked, already pulling out his phone. You must be exhausted from traveling. Sure, the usual. You got it. He placed the order while I headed upstairs with my suitcase, using the opportunity to check my own phone. James had sent through preliminary findings, screenshots of text messages between Derek and Natalie dating back 8 months. My hands shook as I scrolled through them. Derek to Natalie 6 months ago. Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? Natalie to Derek 5 months ago. Emma just called to check in. I hate lying to her, but what we have is too special to give up. Derek to Natalie 4 months ago. Booked us that cabin in the mountains for next weekend. Told Emma I have a work conference. That cabin trip. I remembered that weekend. I'd been disappointed Derek couldn't come to my company's annual gala, but he'd seemed genuinely apologetic about the mandatory conference. I'd gone alone, making excuses for my absent husband while he was off with my best friend. The text got worse the further I scrolled. Natalie to Derek 3 months ago. I'm late, like really late. Should I take a test? Derek to Natalie 3 months ago. Let's wait a few more days. Could just be stress. Natalie to Derek 2 months ago. It's positive. Derek, I'm pregnant. What are we going to do? Derek to Natalie 2 months ago. We'll figure it out. I love you. This changes everything, but we'll handle it together. I love you. He'd told her he loved her while coming home to me every night, while making anniversary dinner reservations, while lying beside me in our bed. The betrayal cut deeper with each message. This wasn't just a physical affair. They were in love, or at least Derek claimed to be. He'd built an entire relationship with Natalie while maintaining the facade of our marriage. My phone buzzed with another message from James. Found something else. Derek's been looking at apartments downtown. 3 different properties in the past month, 2-bedroom units. Looks like he's planning to move in with her, so that was his plan. Wait until after my big promotion, then drop the divorce bomb. Probably position himself as the good guy who tried to make it work, but grew apart from his wife. Leave out the part about the affair, the pregnancy, the months of calculated deception. He'd probably already consulted a divorce attorney. Probably had his exit strategy all planned out. He just didn't know I was 10 steps ahead of him now. Emma? Derek called from downstairs. Food's here. I composed myself, wiping away the angry angry tears that had formed and headed back down. Derek had set the table with our nice plates, the ones from our wedding registry. He'd even lit candles. "What's this?" I asked, gesturing to the romantic setup. "Just wanted to make your first night back special," he said with that charming smile. "I know I've been distracted lately with work. Wanted to show you I appreciate everything you do." Guilt dinner. How thoughtful. We ate together, Derek asking questions about Chicago, sharing stories about his week. He was good at this. The performance of normalcy. If I didn't know better, I'd believe every word. But I did know better. And every smile, every touch, every loving word was just another lie in a tower of lies that was about to come crashing down. After dinner, Derek suggested we watch a movie. Our usual routine. I agreed, curling up beside him on the couch like I had hundreds of times before. His arm around my shoulders felt like a prison now, instead of comfort. Halfway through the movie, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it quickly, then set it face down on the coffee table. "Work?" I asked innocently. "Just Jenkins with a stupid question. I'll deal with it tomorrow." Another lie. I'd seen the name that flashed on his screen. Natalie. She was probably checking in, making sure her lover's wife wasn't suspicious. "Don't worry, Natalie. I'm not suspicious. I'm certain." When the movie ended, Derek turned to me with intention in his eyes. "I've really missed you," he said, his hand moving to my waist. Nausea rolled through me. He wanted to sleep with me. The same man who'd been sleeping with my best friend. The same man who'd gotten her pregnant while lying to my face. "I'm exhausted, babe," I said, pulling away gently. Traveling really wiped me out. "Rain check?" Disappointment flickered across his face, but he covered it quickly. "Of course. You need your rest. Big day tomorrow with Natalie." We headed upstairs to our bedroom, the same bedroom where I'd found him with her. Someone had washed the sheets and made the bed perfectly. Derek, probably, covering his tracks. I went through my nighttime routine on autopilot, washing my face, brushing my teeth, changing into pajamas. Derek was already in bed when I emerged from the bathroom, scrolling through his phone with a small smile on his face. Texting Natalie, no doubt. Maybe telling her how he'd successfully fooled his stupid wife again. Maybe discussing their future together. Their baby. The life they'd built on the ruins of my trust. I climbed into bed beside him, every fiber of my being screaming to get away from this man, but I couldn't. Not yet. Patricia's words echoed in my mind. "Every day you pretend is another day we gather evidence." Derek turned off the light and settled in beside me. Within minutes, his breathing deepened into sleep. Meanwhile, I lay awake in the darkness, my mind racing through everything I'd learned in the past 24 hours. Tomorrow, I'd have brunch with Natalie. She'd tell me about her pregnancy, probably spinning some story about a mystery man or a one-night stand. She'd look me in the eyes and lie, just like Derek had been doing for months. And I'd smile and congratulate her and act thrilled for my best friend. I'd play my part perfectly, because that's what you do when you're planning a war. You gather intelligence, you study your enemy, you wait for the perfect moment to strike. My phone lit up on the nightstand, a text from Patricia. "Meeting tomorrow 3 p.m. Bring all evidence James collected. We're ready to move forward with filing. Filing, divorce papers, the beginning of the end." I typed back, "I'll be there." Beside me, Derek stirred in his sleep, mumbling something incoherent. Once upon a time, I would have found it endearing. Now it just made me angry. Tomorrow would be interesting. Brunch with Natalie, then the meeting with Patricia. Two very different conversations that would shape the next phase of this nightmare. I finally drifted off around 3 a.m., exhausted but determined. When I woke at 7, Derek was already up and dressed for work. "Morning, beautiful," he said, kissing my forehead like a loving husband. "Coffee's ready downstairs. I've got an early meeting, but I'll see you tonight for our anniversary dinner. Looking forward to it?" I lied smoothly. After Derek left, I called in sick to work, something I never did. But today wasn't about work. Today was about gathering the last pieces of evidence I needed before unleashing hell. At 10 a.m., I met Natalie at our favorite brunch spot, a trendy place downtown with overpriced mimosas and Instagram-worthy avocado toast. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at our usual corner table, looking radiant in a flowy dress that disguised her growing belly. "Emma!" She jumped up to hug me, all enthusiasm and false affection. "God, I've missed you. Chicago's been keeping you so busy." "It has been crazy," I agreed, sitting down across from her. "But I'm here now. So, what's this exciting news?" Natalie's face lit up with what looked like genuine joy. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the texts, the lies, the 8 months of betrayal, and my sympathy evaporated. "Okay, so I've been keeping this secret for a couple months now because I wanted to be sure everything was okay," but she paused dramatically. "I'm pregnant." I let my eyes widen in manufactured surprise. "Oh my God, Nat, that's amazing. Congratulations." I reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "Tell me everything. Who's the father? When did this happen?" Her expression faltered slightly, the first crack in her performance. "It's complicated. The father is someone I've been seeing, but he's not ready to be public yet. There are some circumstances that make it tricky." "Circumstances like a wife, you mean? But you're happy?" I pressed. "You're keeping the baby?" "Yes, absolutely. I know it's not ideal timing, but I'm 31, Emma. If I wait for the perfect moment, it might never come. And this baby, it feels right, like it was meant to be. Meant to be. The baby conceived during an affair with my husband felt meant to be to her." "I'm so happy for you," I said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. "You're going to be an amazing mom." "Does the father know?" "He does. And he's being supportive. He wants to be involved once things settle down." "Once things settle down?" "Once he leaves his wife," she meant. "Once I was out of the picture so they could buy a house together with their love child." "That's good," I said carefully. "You deserve someone who'll step up and be there for you and the baby." Natalie's eyes listened with what looked like genuine emotion. "You're such a good friend, Emma. I don't know what I'd do without your support, especially with everything being so complicated right now." The audacity of this woman. Sleeping with my husband, carrying his child, and still expecting my friendship and support. Still playing the role of my devoted best friend while actively destroying my life. That's what friends are for, I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. We ordered food. She got the pregnancy-safe options, making a show of avoiding unpasteurized cheese and deli meats, and continued our conversation. Natalie talked about baby names, nursery themes, her plans for maternity leave from her freelance work. And you and Derek? She asked eventually. How are you guys? Anniversary coming up, right? The nerve of this woman. 8 years today, actually. He made reservations at Marcello's tonight. Aw, that's so romantic. Where he proposed. He's such a good guy, Emma. You're lucky. I took a long sip of my mimosa to prevent myself from throwing it in her face. Yeah, I'm very lucky. After brunch, we hugged goodbye. And Natalie made me promise to help her plan a baby shower in a few months. You're going to be the best honorary aunt, she gushed. Honorary aunt to my husband's baby. The universe had a sick sense of humor. I drove straight from brunch to Patricia's office, still reeling from the performance I'd just endured. Her assistant ushered me in immediately. How was it? Patricia asked as I sat down. She told me about the pregnancy, claimed the father wants to be involved but can't be public yet due to complicated circumstances. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Did you record it? I pulled out my phone and played the audio I'd captured. Patricia listened intently, making notes. Perfect. This establishes her knowledge of the affair and her willingness to participate in deceiving you. Combined with the evidence James gathered, we have an airtight case. She spread out documents across her desk. Financial records, text message logs, photos, timestamps. 8 months of betrayal, documented in excruciating detail. Here's what's going to happen, Patricia said. Tonight is your anniversary dinner. You're going to go, act normal, maybe even enjoy the food. Derek thinks he's won. He's gotten away with this affair. He's planning his exit strategy, and you're none the wiser. And then, tomorrow morning, a process server will deliver divorce papers to his office. Not at home. We want witnesses. We want his colleagues to see it happen. Maximum embarrassment. I nodded, feeling a grim satisfaction at the mental image. The papers will detail everything. Adultery, dissipation of marital assets, fraud. We're seeking full ownership of the house, 80% of all liquid assets, and full compensation for every dollar he spent on this affair. What about Natalie? Patricia smiled coldly. We can't divorce her, obviously, but we can make her life very uncomfortable. Civil suit for alienation of affection. Depending on your state's laws, we might be able to go after her for damages related to the affair. I want her to lose everything too, I said quietly. She doesn't just get to ride off into the sunset with my husband and play happy family. Trust me, by the time we're done, neither of them will be happy about anything. We spent the next 2 hours going over every detail of the divorce filing. Patricia was thorough, asking questions I hadn't even thought of, preparing for every possible counter-argument Derek's attorney might make. One more thing, Patricia said as I was preparing to leave. After the papers are served tomorrow, change all the locks on your house. He'll probably try to come home to explain, to make excuses. Don't let him. Don't engage. Any communication goes through attorneys from this point forward. What if he shows up anyway? Call the police. The divorce filing includes a request for exclusive use of the marital home during proceedings. If he shows up after being served, he's trespassing. I left Patricia's office feeling more empowered than I had in days. The plan was in motion. Tomorrow, Derek's world would explode, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. But first, I had an anniversary dinner to endure. I spent the afternoon preparing for the performance of a lifetime. I went home, took a long shower, and selected the dress Derek had always said was his favorite, a deep burgundy wrap dress that he'd bought me for our 5th anniversary. The irony of wearing it tonight wasn't lost on me. As I applied my makeup, I studied my reflection in the mirror. On the outside, I looked like the same Emma Harrison who'd married Derek 8 years ago. But inside, everything had changed. The trusting woman was gone, replaced by someone harder, colder, more calculating. Maybe that's what betrayal does. It transforms you into someone you never thought you'd become. Derek arrived home at 6 sharp, carrying a bouquet of white roses, my favorite. Or at least they used to be my favorite. Now they just reminded me of funeral flowers. You look stunning, he said, kissing my cheek. He'd showered and changed at work, wearing the suit I'd helped him pick out last month. Ready for our special night? Absolutely, I replied, taking the flowers and placing them in a vase. They'd be dead by the time he found out what was coming. Fitting. The drive to Marcello's was filled with easy conversation. Derek seemed more relaxed than he'd been in months, probably relieved that I'd been home for over 24 hours without discovering his secret. He thought he was safe. Marcello's was exactly as I remembered. Dim lighting, soft Italian music, the smell of garlic and wine permeating the air. The hostess recognized us immediately. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, so wonderful to see you both. Marco has your favorite table ready. Our favorite table. The same secluded corner booth where Derek had proposed 7 years ago, where I'd cried happy tears and said yes without hesitation, believing we'd spend the rest of our lives together. How naive I'd been. Marco, the owner, came by personally to greet us. 8 years. Congratulations. Tonight, I prepare something special for you, yes? That would be wonderful, Marco. Thank you, Derek said with that charming smile he wore so well. Once we were alone, Derek reached across the table to take my hand. His thumb traced circles on my palm, a gesture that used to make my heart flutter. Now it just made my skin crawl. 8 years, he said softly. Feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago at the same time. It really does, I agreed, forcing warmth into my voice. The wine arrived, an expensive Barolo that Derek had reordered. He made a show of tasting it, nodding his approval, watching as the sommelier poured us each a glass. To us, Derek said, raising his glass. To 8 amazing years and and many more to come. Many more to come. If only he knew that in less than 12 hours, this marriage would be over. I clinked my glass against his. To us. The first course arrived. Burrata with heirloom tomatoes and basil. Derek was in an expansive mood, telling stories about work, asking about my Chicago trip in more detail. He was attentive, engaged, playing the role of devoted husband perfectly. I've been thinking, he said as we finished our appetizers, maybe it's time we started seriously trying for a baby. I know we've talked about it before, but you've been so focused on your career. And now with this promotion, you've proven yourself. Maybe it's time for the next chapter? The next chapter. He wanted to start a family with me while his mistress was already pregnant with his child. The sheer audacity of it stole my breath. That's something to think about, I managed, taking a long sip of wine. I'm serious, Em. We're not getting any younger, and I think we'd make great parents. He already was going to be a parent, just not with me. Our main courses arrived, interrupting what was becoming an increasingly difficult conversation. Derek had ordered my favorite, the lobster ravioli, without asking. Another one of his thoughtful gestures that used to mean something and now meant nothing. Actually, Derek said, setting down his fork mid-meal, there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about. My heart rate quickened. Was he going to tell me? Confess everything right here, right now? What is it? He pulled out a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. For a moment, I thought it might be divorce papers folded up, but no, it was jewelry. I know our anniversary isn't until tomorrow officially, but I couldn't wait. He opened the box to reveal a diamond bracelet, delicate and expensive. I wanted you to know how much you mean to me, how much our marriage means to me. The bracelet was beautiful. It was also purchased with money from our joint account, money I'd helped earn, money he'd also used to buy things for Natalie. Derek, it's gorgeous, I said, letting him fasten it around my wrist. The metal felt cold against my skin. You deserve it. You deserve everything, Emma. I know I haven't always been the best husband lately. Work has been demanding, I've been distracted, but I want you to know that you're my priority. Always, always. Such a convenient word for a liar. I love you, he added, squeezing my hand. Those 3 words that used to fill me with warmth now just filled me with rage. But I smiled and said them back, because that's what this night required. One last performance before the curtain fell. Dessert came, tiramisu, which we shared like we always did. Derek fed me bites from his fork, laughing at some story he was telling about his coworker. To anyone watching, we looked like a perfect couple, happily married, still in love after 8 years. But appearances, I'd learned, were the most successful lies of all. After dinner, Derek suggested a walk through the nearby park where we'd had our first date. It was a clear night, unseasonably warm for late September. Other couples strolled hand in hand under the streetlights, lost in their own worlds. This was perfect, Derek said as we walked. Just what we needed. Some time together, away from everything else. Away from everything else, including his pregnant mistress, who was probably at home right now, wondering how his anniversary dinner with his wife was going. We returned home around 10. Derek was in an affectionate mood, probably relieved that he'd successfully pulled off another deception. As we got ready for bed, he kept touching me, my waist, my shoulders, my hair, like he was staking a claim. Emma, he said as we lay in bed, his arms around me. Thank you for tonight, for being patient with me these past few months. Things are going to be different now, I promise. Better. Because soon he'd be living with Natalie and their baby, free from the burden of his unsuspecting wife. I didn't respond, just let him hold me as his breathing gradually slowed into sleep. Meanwhile, I lay awake, watching the clock on my nightstand tick toward tomorrow, toward the end. At midnight, my phone vibrated with a text from Patricia. Process server confirmed for 9 a.m. at his office. Are you ready? I typed back with one hand, careful not to wake Derek. Ready. This was it. In 9 hours, Derek's carefully constructed double life would come crashing down. No more lies, no more deception, just cold, hard consequences. I must have dozed off eventually because I woke to Derek's alarm at 6:30. He kissed my forehead before getting out of bed, completely oblivious to what was coming. Big day at work, he said, heading for the shower. Budget meeting with the executives. Should be home by 6 though. Maybe we can order in? Sounds good, I mumbled, pretending to be half asleep. After Derek left for work at 7:45, I sprang into action. First, I called a locksmith, one that Patricia had recommended, discreet and quick. He could be there by noon to change all the locks. Next, I began packing Derek's clothes. Not everything. Patricia had advised leaving most of his belongings as evidence that the home remained my primary residence. But his daily essentials, his suits, his toiletries. I packed 3 suitcases and left them by the front door. At 8:30, my phone rang. James. Derek just arrived at his office. The server is in position. This is happening. Thank you for everything, Jamie. I mean it. That's what big brothers are for. You holding up okay? Ask me again in an hour. At 8:57, I got a text from Patricia. Server entering building now. My hands started shaking. This was real. This was actually happening. At 9:03, papers delivered. Derek is reading them now. I tried to imagine his face as he read through the divorce filing, the adultery allegations, the financial records, the evidence we'd compiled. Did he pale? Did his hands shake? Did he finally feel even a fraction of what I felt discovering his betrayal? At 9:07, my phone exploded with calls and texts. Derek. 15 missed calls in 3 minutes, text after text flooding in. Emma, what the hell is this? Call me now. This is insane. We need to talk. Where are you? Emma, please. This is a huge misunderstanding. I can explain everything. I didn't respond to any of them. Patricia had been clear. No contact. Everything goes through attorneys. At 9:15, Natalie called. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her message. Emma, oh my god, Derek just called me freaking out. He said you filed for divorce? This doesn't make sense. Call me back. I'm worried about you. The concern in her voice was almost convincing. Almost. But I'd heard her text to Derek, read their messages. I knew exactly what she was, a liar and a homewrecker. At 9:30, the locksmith arrived. While he worked on changing all the locks, I sat at my kitchen table and finally allowed myself to feel something other than cold determination. Grief hit me like a wave. Not grief for Derek, he deserved what he got, but grief for the marriage I'd thought I had, for the future I'd planned, for the naive trust that had been shattered beyond repair. I cried for the first time since finding them together, letting 8 years of love and hope and dreams pour out in broken sobs. The locksmith worked quietly, pretending not to notice. At 10:15, Derek's car screeched into the driveway. I watched through the window as he jumped out and ran to the front door, still in his work clothes. His face flushed and panicked. He tried his key once, twice, then started pounding on the door. Emma, open the door. We need to talk about this. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, not moving. Emma, please, this is crazy. Just let me explain. The locksmith glanced at me. Want me to call the police? Not yet. Let's see if he leaves on his own. Derek's pounding intensified. Emma, I know you're in there. Your car is in the garage. Just open the door. I texted Patricia. He's here, at the house, trying to get in. Her response was immediate. Perfect. Recording this? I hadn't been, but I started now, capturing the audio of Derek's increasingly frantic attempts to get inside. Emma, baby, please. Whatever you think is going on, you're wrong. I love you. We can work this out. The locksmith finished his work, handing me a new set of keys. All done. Want me to stick around in case he gets aggressive? That would be great, actually. Derek's shouting continued for another 10 minutes before he finally gave up. I watched him slump against the door, head in his hands. For a moment, he looked genuinely devastated. Then his phone rang. He answered it, and his expression changed. Yeah, I know. She found out. I don't know how, but no, I can't talk about this right now. I'll call you later. Natalie. He was talking to Natalie while sitting on my doorstep, having just been served divorce papers. After Derek finally left, I called my parents. Mom picked up on the first ring. Emma? Honey, what's wrong? It's done, Mom. I filed for divorce this morning. Derek was served at his office. Oh, sweetheart, how are you holding up? I'm okay, I think. It doesn't feel real yet. Your father and I are coming over. We'll be there in an hour. You don't have to. We're coming. You're not going through this alone. My parents arrived with food, Mom's instinct to feed people in crisis, and moral support. Dad, usually a man of few words, pulled me into a fierce hug. He's a fool, Dad said simply. Complete fool. They stayed with me through the afternoon, helping me box up more of Derek's belongings, letting me vent about everything I'd discovered. Mom cried when I showed her the text between Derek and Natalie. Dad's face turned red with barely suppressed anger. What can we do? Mom asked. How can we help? Just be here. That's enough. At 3 p.m., Patricia called with an update. Derek's attorney reached out. He wants to negotiate. What does he want? To keep the house, for starters. Split assets 50-50. He's denying the adultery, claiming you have no proof. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. No proof? We have texts, photos, financial records, witness statements. What more does he want? He's bluffing, hoping we'll settle quickly to avoid a messy trial. But I told his attorney we're prepared to go to court and make everything public. Every text message, every lie, every dollar he spent on his mistress. Good. There's one more thing. Natalie's attorney also reached out. She's threatening a defamation suit if we pursue the alienation of affection case. Let her try. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Patricia's approval was audible. You're learning. I like it. We'll file the alienation suit tomorrow. After my parents left that evening, the house felt impossibly quiet. All of Derek's daily presence was gone. His shoes by the door, his jacket on the hook, his coffee mug in the sink. It was like he'd been erased from my life in a single day. My phone continued buzzing with ignored calls and texts. Derek, Natalie, even some mutual friends who'd heard about the divorce and wanted details. I ignored them all. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my back porch, watching the sunset over the yard. Derek and I had landscaped together 2 summers ago. We planted those rose bushes, built that stone pathway, hung those string lights for outdoor dinners. All those memories now tainted by his betrayal. My phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Derek. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Emma. Please, just talk to me. We can fix this. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed my first and only response. Have your attorney contact mine. We have nothing to discuss. Then I blocked his number, and Natalie's, and anyone else who might try to reach out on their behalf. This chapter of my life was over. The marriage was done. The friendship was destroyed. Everything I'd built with Derek had crumbled to dust. But as I sat there in the fading light, I realized something surprising. I felt relief. Not happiness. That would come later, maybe. But relief that the lies were over. That I didn't have to pretend anymore. That I could finally start healing. The next few weeks would be difficult. There would be legal battles, uncomfortable conversations, the inevitable gossip. But I'd survived the worst of it. I'd discovered the betrayal, and I hadn't fallen apart. I'd gotten angry, I'd gotten strategic, and I'd gotten even. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work and tell them I needed some time off. I'd visit James and thank him properly for his help. I'd call my closest friends, my real friends, and start rebuilding my support system. But tonight, I just sat with myself and acknowledged a hard truth. The woman who married Derek 8 years ago was gone. The woman who'd trusted blindly and loved completely no longer existed. In her place was someone stronger, smarter, and far less willing to accept betrayal without consequences. And that woman, I decided, was going to be just fine. The following week became a blur of legal meetings, document signings, and carefully orchestrated moves in what Patricia called the chess game of divorce. Each day brought new revelations about just how deep Derek's deception had run. James had continued his investigation, uncovering details I'd never suspected. The cabin in the mountains wasn't a one-time thing. Derek had been renting it monthly for the past 6 months, a romantic getaway spot for him and Natalie, paid for with our money. me. $2,000 a month charged to our joint credit card under business expenses. There's more, James said during our meeting on Thursday. He slid a folder across his desk toward me. Derek took out a personal loan 3 months ago. $40,000. For what? According to the loan application, home renovations. But I checked with contractors in the area. No permits filed, no work done on your house. I opened the folder and felt my blood run cold. The loan was in Derek's name only, but he'd listed our house as collateral. Without my knowledge or consent, he'd put our home at risk. Where did the money go? James pulled up bank statements on his computer. $20,000 went to a jewelry store. That engagement ring he bought Natalie. Another $15,000 to a fertility clinic. A fertility clinic? My voice came out strangled. Apparently Natalie had some concerns early in the pregnancy. Derek paid for private doctors, genetic testing, all of it. The rest went to furnishing her apartment and paying her rent for 6 months up front. I stared at the numbers, each one a fresh betrayal. While I'd been working myself to exhaustion, traveling for work, building our future, Derek had been building a completely different future with someone else. Using our money, using our home as collateral. Can we go after him for this? I asked. Absolutely. Patricia's adding it to the filing. Fraudulent use of marital assets, forgery, because I'm betting he forged your signature on some of these documents, and identity theft. Identity theft? James pulled up another document. 3 new credit cards in your name that you didn't open. He's been using them to fund his affair. There's about $25,000 in charges you don't know about. The room tilted. He opened credit cards in my name without your knowledge or permission. That's identity theft and fraud. Emma, this isn't just divorce court anymore. This could be criminal charges. I sat back in the chair, trying to process this new level of betrayal. It wasn't enough that Derek had cheated, had lied, had gotten another woman pregnant. He'd also stolen from me, forged documents, committed fraud. The man I'd married didn't exist. He never had. I want to pursue criminal charges, I said quietly. James nodded. I'll get you in touch with a detective I know. But Emma, you need to understand. Once we go down this road, there's no going back. Derek could face serious jail time. Good. He deserves it. That afternoon, I met with Detective Sarah Martinez from the Financial Crimes Unit. She listened to everything I had to say, reviewing the evidence James had compiled with an increasingly grim expression. Mrs. Harrison, this is one of the most clear-cut cases of financial fraud I've seen in years, she said. The identity theft alone is a felony. Combined with the forgery and the misuse of your home as collateral without consent, we're looking at multiple charges. What happens next? I file a report, we investigate further, and if everything checks out, which I'm confident it will, the district attorney's office will decide whether to press charges. Given the amount of money involved and the clear evidence, I'd say it's very likely. I left the police station feeling strange. Part of me, the old Emma who'd loved Derek, felt guilty about potentially sending him to prison. But the new Emma, the one who'd seen the depths of his betrayal, felt nothing but grim satisfaction. He'd made his choices. Now he'd face the consequences. My phone rang as I was driving home. An unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Emma, thank God. It's Natalie. I should have hung up immediately, but something made me listen. I got your new number from your mother, she continued quickly. Emma, please, you have to listen to me. This whole thing, it's not what you think. Really? I kept my voice cold. What is it then, Natalie? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been sleeping with my husband for 8 months and carrying his baby while pretending to be my best friend. Silence. Then, it just happened, Emma. We didn't plan it. We tried to fight it, but stop. I pulled over to the side of the road, hands shaking with rage. Don't you dare try to romanticize this. You didn't try to fight it. You made a choice. Every single time you slept with him, every time you lied to my face, every time you texted him while sitting across from me at brunch, those were all choices. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Emma. But punishing Derek isn't going to change anything. Dragging this through court, pressing criminal charges, all you're doing is hurting yourself. Hurting myself? You destroyed my marriage, Natalie. You slept with my husband in my bed. You got pregnant with his child while I was working to support our future. And now you want me to what? Just let it go? I want you to think about what this revenge is costing you. The legal fees, the stress, the public humiliation. Oh, you're worried about public humiliation? I laughed harshly. Good, you should be. Because when this all comes out in court, and it will, everyone is going to know exactly what you did. Your family, your clients, everyone. Emma, save it. And here's something else for you to think about, Natalie. Derek lied to me for 8 months. He stole from me. He committed fraud using my identity. What makes you think he won't do the same thing to you? I hung up before she could respond and immediately called Patricia. Natalie just called me from a blocked number. Tried to convince me to drop the charges against Derek. Patricia's voice sharpened. What exactly did she say? I recounted the conversation. Patricia made notes, then said, that's witness tampering, or close enough to it. I'm adding it to our filing against her. Emma, I need you to document every attempt they make to contact you. Every call, every text, every message through third parties. It all helps our case. Will do. That evening, I got an unexpected visitor. Derek's mother, Linda, showed up at my door looking devastated. Emma, sweetheart, please, can we talk? I hesitated, then let her in. Linda had always been kind to me, treating me like the daughter she never had. Whatever Derek had done, she didn't deserve to be shut out. We sat in the living room, and Linda immediately started crying. I can't believe he did this to you. When he told me about the divorce, he said you'd grown apart. He didn't mention Natalie or the baby or any of this until I called him after seeing the court documents. I'm sorry you had to find out that way. Don't apologize. You have nothing to apologize for. Linda wiped her eyes. I raised him better than this. His father and I, we taught him about commitment, about honor. I don't understand how he could throw away his marriage for whatever this is with Natalie. Neither do I. Emma, I want you to know, whatever happens with the divorce with the legal issues, you'll always be family to me. You're the daughter of my heart, and Derek's choices don't change that. Her words broke something loose in me. I'd been so focused on being strong, on fighting back, that I hadn't let myself feel the full weight of what I'd lost. Not just a husband, but an entire family, a future, a life I'd built. I cried then, really cried, while Linda held me like she'd done so many times over the years. When we were teenagers and I was struggling with my parents' divorce, when I didn't get into my first choice college, when my grandmother passed away. She'd been more of a mother to me than my own mother sometimes. And now I was losing her too. You're not losing me, Linda said, reading my thoughts. I'm not going anywhere. Derek made his bed, literally, and now he has to lie in it. But you didn't do anything wrong, and I won't abandon you because of his mistakes. After Linda left, I felt both better and worse. Better because I still had her support. Worse because it made Derek's betrayal feel even more complete. He hadn't just hurt me, he'd hurt his own mother, his family, everyone who'd believed in our marriage. The next morning, Patricia called with news. Derek's attorney wants to settle. They're offering you 70% of all liquid assets, the house, and Derek will pay off all the fraudulent credit card debt. What about the criminal charges? That's not on the table for negotiation. Those are between Derek and the state. But his attorney seems to think that if we settle the civil matters quickly, it might influence the DA's decision on criminal prosecution. What do you think? I think we can get more, especially once the alienation of affection suit against Natalie goes through. But the question is, what do you want? Emma, is this about the money or is this about making them pay? I thought about that for a long moment. Both. I want fair compensation for what they did, but I also want them to face real consequences, not just financial ones. Then we keep pushing. We go to trial if necessary. We make sure everyone knows exactly what they did. Let's do it. That weekend, I agreed to meet with Derek one final time. Not because I wanted to hear his excuses, but because Patricia thought it might be useful to have one last conversation on record. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown where we'd never been together. Derek arrived looking haggard, like he hadn't slept in days. Good. Emma, he said, sitting down across from me. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I didn't respond, just placed my phone on the table between us, recording light visible. Right, okay. He ran his hands through his hair, a nervous gesture I'd seen 1,000 times. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you in the worst possible way, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught? Both. Neither. I don't know. He looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I never meant for any of this to happen. It started small, and then it spiraled, and before I knew it, I was in too deep to get out. You could have stopped at any time. You could have been honest. I know. You're right. I should have. He reached across the table like he was going to take my hand, then thought better of it. But Emma, the criminal charges, that's going too far. I made mistakes, yes, but jail time? You committed identity theft, I interrupted. You opened credit cards in my name without my knowledge. You used our home as collateral for a loan I never approved. Those aren't mistakes, Derek. Those are crimes. I was trying to protect you. I didn't want you to know about the money I was spending because I knew it would hurt you. So you stole from me instead? That's your defense? He slumped in his chair. What do you want from me? What will it take for you to drop the charges? I don't want anything from you anymore, Derek. I just want you out of my life. Fine. I'll give you everything. The house, the money, all of it. Just drop the criminal charges. That's not how it works. The charges are between you and the state. I can't drop them even if I wanted to. But you could tell the DA you don't want to press charges, that it was all a misunderstanding. I leaned forward, my voice ice cold. It wasn't a misunderstanding. You stole from me. You lied to me. You betrayed me in every possible way. And now you want me to lie to prosecutors to save you from the consequences of your own actions? Emma, please. Think about Natalie. Think about the baby. I am thinking about the baby. I'm thinking about how its father is a criminal who's about to go to jail. Maybe you should have thought about that before you committed fraud. Derek's face crumpled. I love her. I love Natalie, and I love our baby. I know that hurts you, but it's the truth. And they need me. Those words should have devastated me. Instead, I felt nothing but contempt. You don't know what love is, Derek. Love isn't lying and stealing and betraying. Love isn't sneaking around behind someone's back. Whatever you feel for Natalie, it's not love. It's just selfish desire. I stood up, gathering my phone and purse. Wait, Derek said desperately. Is there anything I can say? Anything I can do to make you understand? There's nothing to understand. You made your choices. Now live with them. I walked out of that coffee shop and didn't look back. Behind me, I could hear Derek calling my name, but I kept walking. That part of my life was over. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Detective Martinez. Mrs. Harrison, I wanted to update you. The DA has decided to file charges against your husband. 3 counts of identity theft, 2 counts of fraud, and 1 count of forgery. Given the amount of money involved and the clear evidence, we're looking at significant prison time if he's convicted. How significant? Minimum 3 years, possibly up to 7 depending on the judge and whether he takes a plea deal. 7 years. Derek could spend 7 years in prison because of his own choices. Part of me felt vindicated. The larger part just felt tired. Thank you for letting me know. There's one more thing. Natalie Scott has also been named in the investigation. She accepted gifts and financial support knowing the money was obtained fraudulently. She could be charged as an accessory. Natalie could face charges too. The full weight of their betrayal was catching up to both of them. What happens next? Derek has been formally charged. He'll be arraigned next week. I'll keep you updated on the proceedings. After hanging up, I sat in my car for a long time, trying to process everything. In less than 2 weeks, my entire life had been dismantled and rebuilt. The marriage was over. Derek was facing prison. Natalie's life was falling apart. And me, I was free. Free from lies, from betrayal, from pretending everything everything was okay when it wasn't. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Just got word that Derek's attorney wants to fast-track the divorce settlement. They're scared of how bad this looks for trial. We can finalize everything within 2 weeks if you're ready. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I could be legally divorced, financially compensated, and completely done with this chapter of my life. I typed back, let's do it. Then I drove home to the house that was now just mine, poured myself a glass of wine, and allowed myself to feel something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Not for reconciliation or forgiveness or any fairy tale ending, but hope that maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild my life into something better than what I'd lost. Something real, something honest, something that was entirely my own. The divorce was finalized on a cold Tuesday morning in late October, exactly 3 weeks after I first discovered Derek's betrayal. Patricia had negotiated a settlement that left me with far more than I'd expected. The house, 85% of our liquid assets, Derek's agreement to pay off all fraudulent debts, and his portion of my retirement accounts. You did well, Patricia said as we left the courthouse. Better than well, actually. This is one of the most favorable divorce settlements I've seen in years, but the settlement felt hollow. Money and property couldn't replace the years I'd lost, the trust that had been shattered, the future I'd planned that would never exist. Derek hadn't shown up to the final hearing. His attorney cited his upcoming criminal trial as the reason, but I suspected the real reason was shame. He couldn't face me, couldn't look me in the eye while our marriage was officially dissolved. Good. I didn't want to see him either. The criminal trial was scheduled for December. Detective Martinez had been thorough in building the case, and the evidence was overwhelming. Derek's attorney had tried multiple times to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA's office was holding firm. They wanted to make an example of him, a privileged white-collar criminal who thought he was above consequences. Natalie's situation was equally dire. While she hadn't been criminally charged, the alienation of affection lawsuit was moving forward. Her attorney had tried to dismiss it, arguing that such lawsuits were outdated and rarely successful. But Patricia had countered with evidence so damning that even the judge seemed disgusted. Text messages where Natalie admitted she knew Derek was married, photos of them together at hotels, restaurants, the cabin, financial records showing she'd accepted thousands of dollars in gifts and support. It was undeniable. She's going to lose, Patricia told me after a particularly brutal deposition where Natalie had broken down crying. Her attorney knows it. They'll probably settle out of court to avoid the public trial. How much are we asking for? $500,000. The number took my breath away. Will she even have that kind of money? Her parents do. They're wealthy. Old money from some pharmaceutical fortune. They'll pay to make this go away quietly. I thought about that for a moment. Natalie's parents had always been cold, distant people who measured worth in dollar signs and social standing. The idea of their daughter being publicly exposed as a homewrecker would mortify them more than the financial loss. I want her to admit it, I said suddenly. In writing, a formal admission of what she did. Patricia smiled. I can make that happen. That evening, I had dinner with Linda again. She'd been my rock through the entire process, checking in daily, making sure I was eating and sleeping, offering support without judgment. Derek's attorney called me, she said over pasta at her favorite Italian restaurant. They want me to testify as a character witness at his trial. Will you? Linda set down her fork and looked at me directly. No. I told them I wouldn't lie under oath about my son's character. Not after what he did to you. Linda, he's still your son, and you're still the daughter of my heart. What Derek did was unforgivable, Emma. I love him, but I won't help him escape the consequences of his actions. He needs to face what he's done. Her conviction strengthened my own resolve. If Derek's own mother refused to defend him, why should I feel any guilt about pressing charges? How is he doing? I asked, partly out of morbid curiosity. Terribly. He's living in some cheap apartment downtown, barely scraping by. His job put him on unpaid leave pending the trial, and most of our friends have cut him off. Natalie's parents won't let him near her. They're furious about the pregnancy and the scandal. So Natalie abandoned him too? Her parents forced her hand, told her that if she continued seeing Derek, they'd cut her off financially. She chose the money. Linda shook her head sadly. Neither of them is who I thought they were. The irony wasn't lost on me. Derek had sacrificed everything. His marriage, his reputation, his career, for a woman who'd chosen her trust fund over him the moment things got difficult. What about the baby? I asked quietly. Natalie's keeping it, but her parents are insisting she give it up for adoption. They don't want the reminder of this shameful episode in the family. Linda's voice dripped with disdain. Everything is about appearances with them. A child, innocent in all this, would be given away because its existence was inconvenient. The thought made me sad in a way I hadn't expected. Whatever else was true, that baby didn't deserve to be abandoned. Have you thought about what you want to do next? Linda asked, shifting the conversation. Once everything is settled? I don't know. Work has been understanding about the time off, but I can't hide forever. Eventually, I have to go back to real life. Maybe real life looks different now. Maybe it's better. I wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe that something good could come from this devastation. But mostly, I just felt tired. The week before Thanksgiving, Natalie's attorney reached out with a settlement offer. $400,000 and a written admission of wrongdoing in exchange for dropping the lawsuit. Counter with $475,000 and the admission, I told Patricia. And I want it stated explicitly that she knowingly pursued a married man and actively deceived me. Patricia grinned. You're getting good at this. Natalie's attorney accepted the counter within 24 hours. The settlement was signed, the money transferred, and I finally had the written admission I'd wanted. In black and white, Natalie had confessed to everything. The affair, the lies, the deliberate deception of her supposed best friend. It was validation, proof that I hadn't been crazy or paranoid. Everything I'd suspected was true. But reading it didn't feel as satisfying as I'd expected. It just felt empty. guilty. Derek's criminal trial began the first week of December. I wasn't required to testify, but I attended anyway, sitting in the gallery with James and my parents. I needed to see this through to the end. The prosecution laid out their case methodically. The identity theft, the fraudulent credit cards, the forged documents. They brought in forensic accountants who detailed exactly how much Derek had stolen. Expert witnesses testified about the legal definitions of fraud and forgery. Derek's defense attorney tried to paint him as a man who'd made mistakes in judgment but hadn't meant to break the law. It was a weak defense, and everyone in the courtroom knew it. Mr. Harrison was in over his head, the attorney argued. He panicked about his financial situation and made poor choices, but there was no criminal intent. The prosecutor interrupted with devastating effectiveness. No criminal intent? Mr. Harrison opened credit cards in his wife's name without her knowledge. He forged her signature on loan documents. He used their marital home as collateral without her consent. These aren't poor choices. They're deliberate crimes. On the third day of trial, Derek took a stand in his own defense. It was a mistake, his attorney's desperate attempt to humanize him to the jury. The prosecutor destroyed him. Mr. Harrison, did you or did you not open 3 credit cards in your wife's name? I did, but yes or no answers, please. Yes. Did you have Mrs. Harrison's permission to do so? No, but I was trying to protect her. Yes or no, Mr. Harrison? Derek's face flushed. No. Did you forge Mrs. Harrison's signature on loan documents? I thought she would approve if she knew. That's not what I asked. Did you forge her signature? Yes. The questions continued, each one more damning than the last. By the time the prosecutor finished, Derek looked defeated. The jury looked disgusted. Closing arguments came on day 5. The prosecution was brief and powerful. Derek Harrison stole from his wife. He lied to her. He betrayed her trust in every possible way. And then, when she discovered his crimes, he asked her to lie to protect him. This is not a man who deserves your mercy. This is a man who deserves to face the full consequences of his actions. The defense's closing was longer but less effective. Derek's attorney tried to appeal to sympathy, talking about how Derek had already lost everything: his marriage, his job, his reputation, but the jury wasn't swayed. They deliberated for less than 4 hours. We, the jury, find the defendant, Derek Harrison, guilty on all counts. I sat in that courtroom and watched my ex-husband's face crumble as the verdict was read. He'd been found guilty of 3 counts of identity theft, 2 counts of fraud, and 1 count of forgery. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. As the bailiffs led Derek away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one final time. I met his gaze steadily, unflinching. I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just a quiet sense of closure. Justice had been served. Sentencing day arrived with unseasonable warmth for mid-December. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, curious onlookers, and both of our families. Derek's attorney had submitted letters pleading for leniency, but Patricia had countered with victim impact statements from me, documenting not just the financial harm, but the emotional devastation of his betrayal. The judge read through the sentencing guidelines, then looked directly at Derek. Mr. Harrison, you are an educated man who held a position of trust. You chose to abuse that trust, not with strangers, but with your own wife. You stole her identity, forged her signature, and used her assets to fund an extramarital affair. These crimes weren't committed in desperation or necessity. They were committed out of selfishness and entitlement. Derek's attorney started to object, but the judge held up a hand. I've read your letters, counselor. I've heard the arguments about Mr. Harrison's remorse and his loss of career and reputation, but consequences exist for a reason. Mr. Harrison needs to understand that actions have repercussions, and that no one, regardless of their education or social standing, is above the law. The judge paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Derek Harrison, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of probation. You will also be required to pay full restitution to Mrs. Harrison for all financial damages, including legal fees and emotional distress compensation. 5 years. Derek was going to prison for 5 years. I watched as the reality sank in for him, watched his mother weep quietly in the back row, watched his attorney's shoulders slump in defeat. It was over. Finally. Completely over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed with questions. Patricia fielded most of them with practiced ease, but one reporter pushed through to me directly. Mrs. Harrison, do you feel vindicated by today's verdict? I thought about that question carefully before answering. I feel like justice was served. My ex-husband committed crimes and he's facing appropriate consequences. I hope that anyone else in a similar situation sees this case and understands that financial abuse is real, that betrayal has consequences, and that you don't have to accept being victimized. The quote made headlines that evening. Betrayed wife speaks out. You don't have to accept being victimized. My phone exploded with messages. Supportive friends, former colleagues, even strangers who'd followed the case thanking me for speaking up. The overwhelming response was positive. Women sharing their own stories of financial abuse and betrayal, taking courage from my decision to fight back. That night, alone in my house, not ours anymore, I allowed myself to finally process everything that had happened. 3 months ago, I'd been a woman in what I thought was a happy marriage. Now I was divorced, financially secure, and watching my ex-husband go to prison. The journey had been brutal. There had been moments I'd wanted to give up, to settle quietly, to just make it all go away. But I'd pushed through, fought back, and demanded accountability. And in doing so, I'd discovered something important about myself. I was stronger than I'd ever known. The betrayal hadn't broken me. It had forged me into someone who refused to be a victim. My phone buzzed with a text from Linda. Proud of you, sweetheart. So very proud. Dinner this weekend? I smiled and texted back. Absolutely. Absolutely, my treat. Then I poured myself a glass of wine, put on my favorite music, and stood in my kitchen feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness. That would come later, with time and healing. But peace. The war was over. The battle was won. And I had survived with my dignity intact and my strength restored. Derek would spend the next 5 years in prison, thinking about the choices that had brought him there. Natalie would spend the rest of her life knowing she'd destroyed a friendship for a man who'd abandoned her the moment things got difficult. And me? I would spend my time rebuilding, creating a new life better than the old one. A life built on truth instead of lies, on self-respect instead of blind trust. As I stood there in my kitchen, wine glass in hand, I realized something profound. I didn't need Derek's apology. I didn't need Natalie's remorse. I didn't need anyone's validation of my pain. I had fought for myself. I had demanded justice, and I had won. That was enough. 6 months had passed since Derek's sentencing, and spring had arrived with an explosion of color in my garden. The rose bushes Derek and I had planted together were blooming again, but now they were just mine. I'd added new flowers, vibrant peonies and cheerful daisies, transforming the space into something that belonged only to this new chapter of my life. I'd returned to work in January, throwing myself into projects with renewed focus. The promotion I'd earned right before discovering the affair had finally taken effect, and I found myself leading a team of talented professionals on high-profile accounts. My colleagues had been supportive but tactfully silent about the very public divorce and trial. I appreciated their discretion. Emma, got a minute? My boss, Richard, knocked on my office door one afternoon in early April. Of course, come in. He sat down, looking slightly uncomfortable. I wanted to check in with you. You've been back for 3 months now, and your work has been exceptional. But I also know you've been through hell. How are you really doing? The question surprised me with its genuine concern. I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. For the first time in years, I feel like myself again. Good. That's good. He paused. There's another reason I'm here. We have a new client, a major account that could be huge for the company. It requires someone with your expertise, but it also means frequent travel to San Francisco for the next year. I wanted to offer it to you, but given everything you've been through, I understand if you'd rather stay local. San Francisco, a year-long project across the country. 6 months ago, I would have said no immediately. Too raw and uncertain to commit to something so demanding. But now, I'll take it, I said, without hesitation. Richard smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. When can you start? The San Francisco project became my salvation. Flying across the country twice a month gave me distance, both literally and figuratively, from everything that had happened. The work was challenging, engaging, exactly what I needed to rebuild my confidence. I made new friends among the client's team, people who knew nothing about my past, who saw me only as Emma the professional, not Emma the betrayed wife. It was refreshing to be defined by my competence rather than my trauma. One evening after a particularly successful presentation, a colleague named Marcus invited me to dinner with a group from the office. Come on, Emma, you can't fly back to Connecticut tonight anyway. Might as well enjoy San Francisco's food scene. I almost declined out of habit, but something made me agree. Sure, why not? Dinner turned into drinks, which turned into a late-night walk along the waterfront. Marcus was easy to talk to, funny, intelligent, with a self-deprecating humor that put me at ease. So why don't I see a ring? He asked as we stood looking out at the bay, the city lights reflecting on the water. Divorced, I said simply. Recently. Ah, I'm sorry. Bad breakup? The worst. My ex-husband had an affair with my best friend, got her pregnant, stole my identity to fund the affair, and ended up in prison for fraud. Marcus's eyes widened. Jesus, that's not a bad breakup. That's a crime drama. I laughed, surprised by how easily I could discuss it now. It was a nightmare at the time, but I survived. And honestly, I'm better off. Well, his loss. Marcus smiled. Anyone who'd treat you like that is an idiot. It wasn't a romantic moment. Not really. But it was the first time since Derek that a man had looked at me with genuine interest, and I hadn't immediately shut down. Maybe I was healing more than I realized. Back in Connecticut, life continued to evolve. Linda and I had dinner every other week, our bond stronger than ever. She'd cut off contact with Derek completely after he refused to take responsibility for his actions, instead blaming me for overreacting. He called me from prison last week, Linda told me over Thai food one evening, asked me to visit, to bring him money for commissary. What did you say? I told him no, that he made his choices and now he has to live with them. She shook her head sadly. I raised him better than this, Emma. I don't know where I went wrong. You didn't go wrong. Derek made his own choices. You can't blame yourself for that. I know, but he's still my son. It hurts to watch him suffer, even if he brought it on himself. I understood that pain. Despite everything Derek had done, there were still moments when I remembered the good times, the man I'd fallen in love with 9 years ago, the future we planned together. Those memories hurt in a different way than the betrayal, a melancholy ache for something that had never truly existed. In May, I received an unexpected letter. The return address was a prison in upstate Connecticut. Derek. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity won out. Emma, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you probably hate me, and you have every reason to, but I need to say some things, even if you never respond. I was wrong about everything. The affair, the lies, the fraud, all of it. I can't explain why I did what I did except to say that I was selfish and cowardly. I convinced myself that what you didn't know wouldn't hurt you, that I could have both lives without consequences. I was an idiot. Prison has given me a lot of time to think about the man I became, about the promises I broke and the trust I destroyed. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. You deserved honesty, loyalty, respect. Instead, I gave you betrayal and pain. I'm not writing this to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve that. I'm writing because you deserve to know that none of this was your fault. You were a perfect wife, supportive, supportive, loving, patient. The failure was entirely mine. I heard you got a big promotion. I'm proud of you even though I have no right to be. You're going to do amazing things, Emma. You always were meant for greatness. I hope you find someone who treats you the way you deserve to be treated. Someone who sees your worth and cherishes it. Someone better than I ever was. I'm sorry for everything. Derek. I read the letter twice, then set it on my kitchen counter and stared at it for a long time. It was the apology I'd once desperately wanted. The acknowledgement of his guilt. The admission that I'd done nothing wrong, but it didn't change anything. The words were nice, but they couldn't undo the damage. Couldn't restore the years I'd lost or the trust he'd shattered. I thought about responding, about telling Derek that I appreciated his apology. But in the end, I filed the letter away in a drawer and didn't reply. Some chapters needed to stay closed. Natalie's story had unfolded very differently. True to her parents' wishes, she'd given the baby up for adoption immediately after birth. The adoption had been closed. No contact allowed. She'd moved to California shortly after. Apparently unable to face the whispers and judgment in Connecticut, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd tried to reach out to some of our old friends, looking for support or forgiveness. Most had shut her out. The few who'd maintained contact reported that she was struggling, financially, emotionally, professionally. Part of me felt satisfaction at that news, the vindictive part that wanted her to suffer as I had suffered, but mostly I just felt sad. Sad that she'd thrown away a genuine friendship for something that had cost her everything. I never reached out to her, never responded to the few messages she sent through third parties. Our friendship was dead, and some things couldn't be resurrected. In July, a year after discovering the affair, I attended a company gala in San Francisco. Marcus was there, and we ended up talking for most of the evening. When he asked if I'd like to have dinner sometime, just the two of us, I surprised myself by saying yes. Our first date was casual, easy. Marcus made me laugh, listened when I talked, and didn't push for more than I was ready to give. When he kissed me goodnight, it felt both foreign and right. I like you, Emma, he said as we stood outside my hotel, but I know you've been through a lot. We can take this as slow as you need. Thank you, I said sincerely. Slow sounds perfect. We dated long distance for the next few months. Nothing too serious, just enjoying each other's company when I was in San Francisco or when he occasionally came to Connecticut for work. It was exactly what I needed. Connection without pressure. Romance without expectation. Linda was thrilled when I told her about Marcus. It's about time you let someone else in, she said, hugging me tightly. You deserve to be happy, sweetheart. I am happy, I realized as I said it. Not because of Marcus, though he's wonderful, but because I'm happy with myself, with my life, with who I've become. And it was true. The woman I'd become through this nightmare was stronger, wiser, more self-assured than the woman I'd been before. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to stand up for myself, to demand the respect I deserved. The betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but in surviving it, I'd discovered reserves of strength I hadn't known I possessed. In October, on what would have been my 9th wedding anniversary, I took the diamond bracelet Derek had given me at that final anniversary dinner and sold it. The money went to a local women's shelter, supporting survivors of domestic abuse and financial exploitation. This is incredibly generous, the shelter director said when I presented the check. May I ask what inspired this donation? Let's just say I understand what it's like to rebuild your life after someone you trusted destroys it. If this money can help even one woman find her way forward, it's worth it. That same week, I received news that Derek was up for early parole. He'd served 18 months of his 5-year sentence and was eligible for review based on good behavior. Patricia called me immediately. The parole board wants your input. You can submit a statement supporting or opposing his release. What do you think I should do? That's not my decision, Emma. It's yours. But I'll say this. Derek has served less than a third of his sentence. Is that enough? I thought about it for days. Part of me wanted him to serve every single day of his sentence, to fully experience the consequences of his actions. But another part, the part that had moved on and found peace, didn't care anymore. In the end, I submitted a brief statement to the parole board. Derek Harrison committed serious crimes against me and betrayed my trust in the most fundamental ways. However, I believe in rehabilitation and second chances. If the parole board determines that Mr. Harrison has genuinely reformed and understands the gravity of his actions, I will not oppose his early release. That said, if he is released, I request that he be prohibited from contacting me in any way. I have moved forward with my life, and I have no desire to revisit this chapter. Derek was granted parole in November. He was released with strict conditions, regular check-ins with a parole officer, mandatory counseling, and a restraining order preventing him from contacting me. I heard through Linda that he'd moved to another state, trying to start over somewhere his crimes weren't public knowledge. She'd spoken to him briefly, and he'd seemed genuinely remorseful. Do you think he's really changed? She asked me over dinner. I don't know, I said honestly, and I don't really care. He's not my problem anymore. By December, my life had settled into a comfortable new rhythm. The San Francisco project was wrapping up successfully. Marcus and I were growing closer, and I'd even started reconnecting with old friends who'd supported me through the divorce. One snowy evening, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea, looking at the Christmas tree I'd decorated by myself. Last year at this time, I'd been in the depths of despair, fighting battles on multiple fronts, wondering if I'd ever feel normal again. Now I was planning to spend Christmas in California with Marcus's family. I'd been promoted again at work. I'd rebuilt my savings and invested the settlement money wisely. Most importantly, I'd rebuilt myself. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Emma, this is Natalie. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I need to tell you something. I've been in therapy for the past year, working through everything that happened. My therapist helped me understand that what I did to you was was unforgivable. I destroyed our friendship, betrayed your trust, and participated in devastating you. There's no excuse for my actions. I was selfish, jealous, and cruel. You deserved so much better from someone you called a friend. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I hope you're happy, Emma. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Natalie. I read the message 3 times, then deleted it without responding. Her apology, like Derek's letter, was too little, too late. The words were nice, but they couldn't undo the damage. Some betrayals were simply unforgivable. I finished my tea and looked around my home, the house I'd bought for and won. Every room held new memories now, untainted by Derek's presence. The bedroom had been completely redecorated. The kitchen where I'd cried so many tears now felt like a sanctuary again. This house, like me, had been transformed. What was once a place of betrayal and pain had become a symbol of survival and strength. Marcus called as I was getting ready for bed. Hey, beautiful. Just calling to say goodnight. Good night, I said, smiling at the sound of his voice. See you next week, counting the days. After we hung up, I stood at my bedroom window, looking out at the snow falling softly over my neighborhood. Somewhere out there, Derek was starting over in a new city. Natalie was trying to rebuild her life in California. Their stories continued, but they were no longer intertwined with mine. I'd spent so long being defined by what had been done to me, the betrayal, the victim, the survivor, but I was ready to be defined by what came next, by my career success, by my new relationship, by the woman I'd chosen to become. The affair, the divorce, the trial, it was all part of my history now, but it wasn't my future. I'd taken the worst thing that ever happened to me and transformed it into strength, and that strength, I realized, was the greatest revenge of all. Not because it hurt Derek or Natalie, but because it freed me from needing them to hurt. I'd survived. I'd fought back. I'd won. And now, finally, I was ready to be happy again. What do you think about this story? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself when someone betrayed your trust? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you made it this far, thank you for coming on this journey with me. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more true stories of resilience and strength. Your support means everything.